This is TWiT.
QR codes. If you have been out to eat or been to a auto mechanic or just been out in the world in the last couple of years, you've seen these little square things look vaguely like black and white portraits as done in Minecraft. Well, these were originally visual codes, kind of like barcodes, developed to track automotive parts in the automobile manufacturing process. A company called Denso Wave developed them, and there have been some 40 generations now, so that they can carry up to 16,000 plus bits of information. That's an awful lot of data to be in a little piece of paper that you're supposed to photograph. Now, you can use these for all kinds of quite legitimate purposes, and one of those in the pandemic has been to give people hands-free menus. In other words, not something that other people have had their grimy, disease-filled hands all over. You just go up, scan something with your mobile phone, and the menu pops up. You can do the same thing to pay or to comment or leave a review or whatever. Here's the problem. How many times have you seen people come into a restaurant, sit down, and before they even get settled, they've whipped out their smartphone and they're taking an image of a QR code so that they can get started on their ordering process? It's like they see the black and white squares, they whip out their mobile device, they scan it, and they're off and running. And that bit of mindlessness is where the problem appears. Because anytime you have a business process or just a living process that people stop thinking about, you've got a vulnerability that threat actors can exploit and use to put malware on systems, to take people to unwanted, malicious websites, well, to do all kinds of things. So I looked at this and said, you know what? It's not that the QR codes are bad. It's that we need to be thoughtful about how we use them. If you're going to go to a restaurant, well, ask a server to bring you a piece of paper that has the code on it, or at least to point out the QR code that's on the table. That way, if there's something unusual there, they'll go, we're not going to see that. Also, I had someone on, one of my colleagues ask me about these things and go, I suppose I shouldn't scan the ones that are plastered on the side of gas pumps. Well, no, you shouldn't. Let's just take it as a bit of, anytime you see information that says do something and it's stuck at a weird angle on the side of a self-serve gas pump, don't do it. That's just basic security. Personal, corporate, all sorts of other kind of security. So think about it. And if you are part of the security team for an organization, make sure that these are mentioned in your cybersecurity awareness training. Remember, thoughtless behavior is where the real vulnerability lies. It's just this becomes a really good vehicle for that thoughtless behavior. Now, Brian, I'm going to kick it over to you because I'm curious, do you ever scan these little QR codes when you're out and about in the world?
Actually, hold on a second. This is my new business card. It's called a dot. And the idea behind it is that you can either scan it with your phone, or you could grab it with your NFC reader off your new iPhone or Android, so that I don't have to quite pass out quite as many business cards. Well, here's the issue, though. Curt and I are both in agreement. When you start doing things just to do it, that's a bad way of doing things. You're looking for problems. And the idea behind it is I actually did a quick and dirty exercise at Interop. Oh, gee, maybe a dozen years ago. And that's around the time when trade shows like Interop changed from mag stripe based badges over to NFC badges. So you just tap and go. It was very popular. It was very fast, much more efficient. But here's the issue. I started doing some research into what NFCs and actually what QR codes can both do. And they're shortcuts for things other than just web addresses. It has approximately 4,000 characters, 16,000 such bits of information. But you can set up your wireless. My demo was actually kind of fun. I was actually using a old Nexus 7 tablet, and I reprogrammed the blank cards, or you could reprogram even a unblank card. And I actually had it send an SMS message to myself saying this was sent from someone's phone. It could just as easily be sending a URL to go and grab a web address from a hacker site. And that's the same for NFC. Here's the really interesting thing. If you have a tap and go credit card, which uses NFC, you really ought to keep it in a wallet or a little envelope that blocks remote RF access. One of the demonstrations that was done at DEF CON was a bunch of guys hanging around with a set of high gain antennas, and they're actually reading credit card information out of people's pockets as they walked by. QR codes and NFCs, I kind of lump into the same category because they can both be used for both good and bad. So the dot cards that I'm going to start using, they are non-reprogrammable. So the good news is they only go to the dot card site and do a database lookup on a record that I maintained, so that you could just scan it and get information about the Aloha Underwater Cabled Observatory, or you could scan it and get information about TWiT TV. The idea is I want to be more efficient. I want to be better for the Earth by not generating business cards that people and throwing away anyway. So I think it's cool. There are QR codes in use all over the place. My students like playing geocache, and a lot of times it's a QR code that have clues on where to go and find the next GPS cache. So you can actually program in very fine-grained GPS coordinates so you can make it to the next waypoint. I know a lot of people that use them. There's actually these really, really nice pieces of wood that you can stick on your table, and it's either a QR code or it's an NFC to set up Wi-Fi on your guest's phone or tablets so they can use your guest Wi-Fi. Obviously, this is another suggestion. Have a guest Wi-Fi. Don't put them on your production Wi-Fi. So QR codes and NFCs are both really interesting, great technologies. You can embed lots of information on them, long, complicated parts codes, or web addresses with lots of JSON API information in it also. Just keep in mind what else it can do. So, Curt, you and I both went to Enterprise Connect, and we noticed a lot of QR codes all over the place. What do you think? You think this is going to be something that's going to take a lot of user education?
I really do, because I don't see QR codes going away. They're just too darned useful. I mean, the fact is, you can convey quite a bit of information through a QR code. Now, like Brian said, on the downside, you can include a lot of JSON information in a URL, which means that you can have a URL that carries with it a login to a particular website. You can have malformed URLs. There are all kinds of goofy and malicious things you can do, but you can also carry the information to do things like bring people to a payment portal for a restaurant or other retail site. It's funny because after writing this article, I got the order sheet for business cards. I'm going to be out traveling to real world conferences this year. And the business card for my part of the organization, sure enough, has a QR code on the front. Now, if I had a better sense of humor, I would make sure that my QR code led to my article on the dangers of QR codes. But realistically, it's going to take people to my page at Omdia. So they're useful. They are darned near ubiquitous. We just need to treat it like something that could be dangerous. Now, I got an interesting comment from a senior vice president at another analyst firm when I put up a tweet about this article. He made the point that what we should be doing is building in endpoint protection. And let's be honest, QR codes are almost always entered through a smartphone when it comes to retail QR codes. Industrial use is something else, but that's not really what we're talking about. So what we need are smartphone protection packages that don't allow an entered URL to take you to someplace malicious or to begin a download. Barring that, then we absolutely need to train people to think about the QR codes, not stop using them, not treat them all as evil and start making big inky X's through them when they see them out in public. Just be careful and a little bit smart. It's funny, a bit of awareness, bit of intelligence goes a long way towards shutting down an awful lot of the malicious activity that's out there.